What happens when America's toughest action hero sits down with late-night television's most arrogant host and refuses to play along with the scripted nonsense? You're about to witness the most explosive celebrity interview meltdown in television history, where Chuck Norris exposed Stephen Colbert's true colors in front of millions of viewers. This isn't your typical Hollywood fluff piece. This is raw, unfiltered confrontation that had network executives scrambling to cut the cameras. Make sure to hit that subscribe button and drop a comment below, because this story will leave you questioning everything you thought you knew about late-night television. The Late Show with Stephen Colbert was supposed to be just another promotional stop for Chuck Norris. He was there to talk about his new fitness program and maybe share a few lighthearted stories about his legendary career. But from the moment Chuck walked onto that soundstage, something felt off. The audience was pumped, cheering as he made his entrance with that signature confident stride. But Colbert's greeting was ice cold. "Chuck Norris, everyone," Colbert announced with a smile that never reached his eyes. The man who supposedly does push-ups by pushing the earth down instead of pushing himself up. Chuck settled into the guest chair, immediately picking up on the condescending tone. "Well, Stephen, I prefer to let my actions speak louder than internet jokes." "Oh, so you're above the memes now?" Colbert leaned back, his voice dripping with sarcasm. "I thought you embraced being a walking punchline." The audience shifted uncomfortably. This wasn't the playful banter they expected. Chuck's jaw tightened slightly, but his voice remained steady. "I've always found it interesting how comedians think they can tear down what others have built up through hard work and dedication." "Hard work?" Colbert scoffed. "Chuck, you made a career out of roundhouse-kicking bad guys in B-movies. Let's not pretend you're splitting atoms here. Those B-movies, as you call them, taught millions of kids about standing up to bullies and fighting for what's right. What exactly has your show taught anyone besides cynicism?" Colbert's smile faltered for just a moment before he recovered. "My show teaches people to think critically, something that seems to be in short supply these days. Speaking of which, let's talk about some of your more interesting political views." "What about them?" "Well, you've been pretty vocal about supporting certain candidates who shall remain nameless, but let's just say they have a tendency to say things that are, how do I put this delicately, completely insane." Chuck leaned forward, his voice dropping to a more serious tone. "Stephen, I support people based on their actions and their character, not on whether they fit into your neat little political boxes. I've spent my life around real people, not sitting in an ivory tower making jokes about them." "Ivory tower?" Colbert laughed, but there was an edge to it now. "Chuck, you live in a mansion in Texas. You're not exactly roughing it with the common folk. The difference is I earned what I have without tearing other people down for entertainment. I built something positive instead of making a living off negativity and division." The audience was dead silent now. You could feel the tension radiating from the stage. Colbert's producer was frantically gesturing from the wings, but the host ignored him completely. "You know what, Chuck? I think you're living in a fantasy world. This whole tough guy persona you've created, it's just marketing. You're selling an image to people who are too simple to see through it." Chuck's eyes narrowed. "Simple? These are hard-working Americans who believe in personal responsibility and treating others with respect. But I guess that's a foreign concept to someone who makes millions mocking people he considers beneath him. I don't mock people, I mock ideas. Bad ideas. Dangerous ideas. No, Stephen, you mock people. You hide behind this character you play, but everyone can see the real you underneath. You're bitter, you're angry, and you use your platform to spread that poison to others." Colbert's facade was cracking now. His voice rose slightly. "At least I'm honest about who I am. You're selling some ridiculous mythology about yourself to gullible people who think you're actually some kind of superhero." "I never claimed to be a superhero. I'm just a man who believes in treating people with dignity and standing up for what's right. But apparently that threatens you somehow." "Threatens me?" Colbert stood up from his desk, something that almost never happened during interviews. Chuck, you represent everything that's wrong with this country. This obsession with machismo, with simple answers to complex problems, with dividing the world into good guys and bad guys like some kind of action movie. Chuck remained seated, calm as ever. And you represent the elite class that looks down on ordinary Americans and thinks they're smarter than everyone else. Tell me, Stephen, when's the last time you had a real conversation with someone who disagreed with you politically without trying to embarrass them? I have those conversations every night on this show. No, you have target practice. You bring people on here to make fun of them and their beliefs so your audience can feel superior. That's not conversation. That's bullying with a laugh track. The audience was completely silent now, sensing that this had gone far beyond normal late-night television. Some people were looking around nervously, wondering if they should still be watching. Colbert's hands were clenched at his sides. You want to talk about bullying? Let's talk about your movies, where you solve every problem with violence. Let's talk about the message you're sending to young people that might makes right. My characters fought against injustice and protected innocent people. They never threw the first punch, but they always finished the fight. There's a big difference between standing up to bullies and being one. Right? And I suppose you think I'm the bully here? Chuck finally stood up, matching Colbert's height. Stephen, you've spent the last 10 minutes trying to humiliate me in front of your audience instead of having an actual conversation. You tell me what that makes you. The studio lights seemed to burn hotter as both men stood face to face across the desk. Colbert's carefully crafted television persona was completely gone now, replaced by something raw and ugly that his viewers had never seen before. You know what your problem is, Chuck. Colbert's voice was shaking with barely controlled rage. You can't handle the fact that your time is over. The world has moved past your brand of toxic masculinity and backwards thinking. You're a relic. Chuck's voice remained steady, but there was steel in it now. My time isn't over, Stephen. There are still millions of people out there who believe in honor, integrity, and standing up for what's right. They're not relics. They're the backbone of this country. Honor? Integrity? Colbert laughed bitterly. From someone who supports politicians who lie as easily as they breathe? Who divides this country with fear and hatred? I support people who put America first instead of apologizing for it every chance they get. People who believe this country is worth fighting for, not something to be ashamed of. Fighting for? Colbert's voice rose to almost a shout. You mean fighting against progress, against equality, against everything that makes this country better? I mean fighting for the values that built this country in the first place. Hard work, personal responsibility, respect for others. You know the things your generation seems to have forgotten. The audience was shifting uncomfortably in their seats. Some people were actually getting up and leaving, unable to handle the intensity of what they were witnessing. The cameras kept rolling, but you could see the production crew in the background looking panicked. My generation? Colbert stepped around the desk now, moving closer to Chuck. My generation is trying to clean up the mess that your generation left behind. We're trying to build a world where people don't have to live in fear of being different. Different? Chuck shook his head. Stephen, I've worked with people of every background, every race, every religion. The difference is I judge them by their character and their actions, not by checking boxes on some diversity scorecard. That's rich coming from someone whose movies were wider than a country club in the 1950s. Those movies were about good versus evil, right versus wrong. Color didn't matter, character did. But apparently that's too simple for your sophisticated worldview. Colbert was breathing heavily now, his face flushed red. You want to talk about character? Let's talk about the character of someone who uses their platform to spread conspiracy theories and misinformation. What conspiracy theories? That people should take responsibility for their own lives? That America is a good country worth defending? That traditional values still matter? Which one of those threatens you so much? Traditional values, Colbert spat. You mean the traditional values that kept women barefoot and pregnant, that kept minorities in their place, that kept anyone who was different hidden in the shadows? Chuck's eyes flashed with anger for the first time. Those aren't the values I'm talking about, and you know it. I'm talking about treating people with respect, working hard for what you want, protecting your family, and standing up for those who can't stand up for themselves. But you've twisted everything into some kind of political weapon. Everything is political, Chuck. Your whole nice guy act is political. Your movies are political. Your fitness programs are political. You just don't want to admit it because then you'd have to take responsibility for the damage you've done. The damage I've done? Chuck stepped closer, his voice dropping to a dangerous whisper. I've spent my life trying to inspire people to be better, to be stronger, to stand up for what's right. You've spent yours tearing people down and dividing them against each other. Which one of us has really done damage? I've exposed liars and hypocrites. I've held powerful people accountable. I've given a voice to people who don't have one. No, Stephen, you've given yourself a voice. This show isn't about helping anyone. It's about feeding your own ego and making yourself feel superior to everyone else. Colbert's hands were shaking now. You don't know anything about me or what I believe. I know enough. I know you hide behind humor when you want to say something cruel. I know you surround yourself with people who agree with everything you say. I know you've never had to back up your words with actions because you've always had bodyguards and lawyers to protect you. Protect me from what? From people like you who think violence is the answer to everything. I've never started a fight in my life, but I've finished plenty of them. The difference is, I fight bullies, not innocent people trying to live their lives. Innocent people. Colbert's voice cracked. You call the people who support your political allies innocent? They're destroying democracy, Chuck. They're tearing this country apart. The only thing tearing this country apart is people like you who can't accept that other Americans might have different opinions. You've decided that anyone who disagrees with you is your enemy instead of your neighbor. Some opinions are wrong, Chuck. Some opinions are dangerous. Some opinions deserve to be challenged. Challenged, yes. Mocked and ridiculed, no. There's a difference between debate and destruction, but you've never learned it. Colbert was pacing now, running his hands through his hair. The studio audience was completely silent, many of them staring in shock at their beloved host unraveling before their eyes. You think you're so righteous, don't you? So pure. But you're just another celebrity with opinions, Chuck. You're not special. I never said I was special. I'm just a man who believes in doing the right thing, even when it's hard. Especially when it's hard. But you wouldn't understand that because you've never had to fight for anything real in your life. Fight for anything real? Colbert whirled around to face him. I've fought every day to make this show something meaningful, something that matters. This show doesn't matter, Stephen. It's just entertainment for people who want to feel better about themselves by watching you attack people they already dislike. It's not changing minds. It's not bringing people together. It's just making the divide deeper. At least I'm trying to make a difference instead of selling fantasies to people who can't handle reality. Chuck shook his head slowly. The reality is that this country is full of good people who want to do right by their families and their communities. But you've convinced yourself that half of them are monsters because they don't vote the way you want them to. They are monsters if they support policies that hurt innocent people. And there it is, Chuck said quietly. You've just called millions of Americans monsters because they disagree with you politically. That's not comedy, Stephen. That's hatred. The word hatred hung in the air like a bomb that had just exploded. Colbert's face went completely white, then flushed red again as the accusation hit home. For a moment the studio was so quiet you could hear the hum of the cameras. Hatred? Colbert's voice was barely above a whisper, but it carried a venom that made everyone in the audience lean back in their seats. You want to talk about hatred? Let's talk about the hatred your supporters have for anyone who doesn't look like them, think like them, or worship like them. Chuck remained perfectly still, his voice calm and measured. My supporters, as you call them, are teachers, firefighters, nurses, farmers, small business owners, and veterans. They're people who get up every day and contribute something positive to their communities. But you've decided they're all bigots because it makes your worldview simpler. Don't lecture me about simple worldviews when you see everything in black and white, good versus evil, like some kind of comic book. Maybe that's because some things really are that simple, Stephen. Treating people with respect is good. Mocking them for entertainment is evil. Standing up for those who can't defend themselves is good. Using your platform to tear people down is evil. Colbert's hands were clenched into fists now. You sanctimonious piece of garbage. You sit there acting like you're better than everyone else while supporting people who want to drag this country back to the Stone Age. The audience gasped. Several people stood up and started walking toward the exits. This had gone far beyond anything they had ever witnessed on television. Chuck, however, didn't even flinch. There it is, Chuck said quietly. The real Stephen Colbert. Not the character you play, not the comedian, but the bitter, angry man who hates anyone who doesn't bow down to his superior intellect. I don't hate anyone, Colbert screamed, spittle flying from his mouth. I hate ignorance. I hate stupidity. I hate people who are too dumb to see that they're being manipulated by con artists and demagogues. You just called me garbage, Stephen. In front of your audience, on national television. And why? Because I believe in things you don't like. Because I won't apologize for loving my country, or thinking that people should take responsibility for their own lives. Your country? Colbert laughed maniacally. It's my country too, Chuck, and I'm trying to save it from people like you who want to turn it into some kind of fascist nightmare. Fascist? Chuck stood up straighter, his voice gaining power. Stephen, I've spent my entire life fighting against the bullies and tyrants. I've made movies about standing up to corrupt governments and protecting freedom. But you call me a fascist because I don't agree with your politics? If the jackboot fits, Colbert sneered. That was the moment Chuck's composure finally cracked just slightly. His voice remained steady, but there was an edge to it that made everyone in the studio hold their breath. You know what, Stephen? I came here to have a conversation. I came here to talk about fitness, about staying healthy, about encouraging people to be the best version of themselves. But you turned it into a political attack because that's all you know how to do. Oh, spare me the victim routine. You knew exactly what you were walking into. I thought I was walking into a talk show, not an ambush. I thought I was going to meet a professional, not a schoolyard bully with a television camera. Colbert's producer was frantically signaling from the wings, making slashing motions across his throat. But Colbert was completely oblivious to everything except his rage. Bully? Colbert's voice broke slightly. I'm the bully? You're the one who makes a living glorifying violence and teaching people that problems can be solved with their fists. No, Stephen, I teach people that sometimes you have to stand up to bullies. Sometimes you have to fight back when someone tries to hurt innocent people. And sometimes you have to call out cowards who hide behind cameras and microphones. Cowards? Colbert was breathing heavily now, his chest heaving. You're calling me a coward? If the shoe fits, Chuck said, throwing Colbert's own words back at him. That was the final straw. Colbert completely lost it, screaming at the top of his lungs. Get him out of here! Get this fossil out of my studio! Security! Security! Chuck didn't move. He stood there calmly as 3 security guards came rushing onto the stage. The audience was in complete chaos now. Some people cheering, others booing, most just sitting in stunned silence. You don't have to call security, Stephen, Chuck said, as the guards approached him. I'll leave on my own. I've said what I came to say. What you came to say? Colbert was practically foaming at the mouth. You came here to spread your propaganda and your hatred. Chuck turned to face the audience, speaking directly to them now instead of to Colbert. I came here to remind people that it's okay to love your country. It's okay to believe in traditional values. And it's okay to disagree with someone without hating them. But apparently that message isn't welcome here. Shut up, Colbert screamed. Just shut up and get out. But Chuck wasn't finished. He looked directly into the main camera, his voice carrying clearly throughout the studio and to millions of viewers. At home. America is a good country filled with good people. Don't let anyone convince you otherwise. Don't let anyone tell you that loving your country makes you a monster. Don't let anyone shame you for believing in hard work, personal responsibility, and treating others with respect. Cut the cameras, Colbert was screaming to his crew. Cut the damn cameras! But the cameras kept rolling as Chuck walked off the stage with dignity, flanked by security guards who looked embarrassed to be part of this spectacle. As he reached the exit, he turned back one more time. Stephen, I hope someday you find the peace you're looking for. This anger you carry, it's eating you alive, and it's poisoning everything you touch. With that, Chuck Norris walked off The Late Show with Stephen Colbert, leaving behind a host who was screaming incoherently at his staff, and an audience that had just witnessed the complete meltdown of one of television's biggest stars. The footage of that interview would spread across the internet within hours, showing the world what happens when someone finally stands up to the bullies of late-night television. Chuck Norris had done what millions of Americans had wanted to do for years. He had called out the hypocrisy and hatred that had infected so much of our entertainment. What did you think of this explosive confrontation? Do you believe Chuck Norris was right to stand his ground, or should he have just walked away earlier? Drop your thoughts in the comments below and make sure to subscribe for more stories that expose the truth behind the cameras. The media won't tell you these stories, but we will.